Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Minority Reportz podcast and digital series. I am your host, Mona Sheikh. It's Happy Friday, baby. Yes, this has been a long week. I don't know about you guys, but it's been a long week. So I am very happy that this week is almost over. But before we end this week, I wanted to invite a very special guest because I've worked with her. She's wonderful. She is just such a consummate professional. And before I start talking about her, here's my friend James said, Happy Friday, everybody. Happy weekend. Thank you very much, James. Same to you. Back to my special guest. I have worked with this guest. My guest today, she's a hilarious comic, and she comes from an engineering background and made the transition into comedy. So I want to know how she engineered that. Okay, there's no drums, so I'm just going to do that myself. You've seen her at Comedy Central. She's been featured in New York Times, and we're going to talk to her. Here's my very talented friend, Karmen Naidoo. How are you?
Hey. Thanks for having me. Oh my God. Wow. Like that introduction. I'm like, oh, I got to live up to it now. It's so much pressure.
It's official now, Karmen. It's official.
Yeah. I was like, oh, I need to send like an email and a gift basket. You know what I mean? Like
please. No, totally unnecessary. Totally unnecessary. Karmen, you are, we've worked a few times. You've been on a couple of Minority Report shows, which, you know, you've always been so wonderful, and you always bring it, and it's always such a pleasure having you. So I wanted to bring you on as a guest and just talk to you about your life. I mean, first of all, you just, right before we started, you told me that you are, of course, you're born and raised in South Africa, and you've only been in the States for 5 years. So what brought you to the United States?
Oh, the origin. I call it the origin story. I won the green card to the green card lottery. My long story short, my mom applied and I got a letter and I thought it was a Nigerian scam. And I was like, Mom, it's a scam. Please stop responding. Stop giving my details to these people. And then one day I just sort of called the embassy and they were like, no, it's legit, but you got like 3 months to complete the application because you missed like the whole fiscal year. And because I got selected in 2015, but like I had 2014 and I had a whole year, but I didn't know it was real, you know?
Yeah.
And so by God's grace, I actually happened to go through it and pass the interview, and now I'm here, like within a month. And it was like,
wow.
Yeah.
When you applied for the green card lottery, was it your mother who applied on your behalf, or you applied yourself?
No, my mom put the application through.
But you knew about it, or you didn't?
She said that she wants to. She was like, "Oh, you should apply for this," and I said, "No, I don't think it's real." Like, you know, you hear all these like random stories, and then she was like, "Okay, give me all your stuff. I'll type it out." Right? So she basically did the whole thing.
Okay.
And then I forgot about it. Like I forgot how we had this conversation, and then I got the email.
Wow. I mean, so no other sibling. So we all know that you're the favorite child. So that's good. No jealousy on your siblings' part, because they're like, oh, Karmen.
What about us?
What about us, Mom?
I mean, you know what? Listen, I wasn't like seeking to come to the United States. No offense. Like, I enjoy the fast internet. You know, I enjoy.
That's it.
That's what I was gonna say, because I'm like, we're in the midst of like a lot of things right now. I enjoy the fast internet. Listen, there was no intent. Like, I love South Africa, and it was my home, and I'm very close to my family. So for me, I never, like, when it happened so fast, it didn't click that, oh wow, I'm changing my life. I was like, oh, I'm gonna go there for a few weeks, see if I like it, and come back.
Yeah.
And of course, when you do all the, like the whole process, you start to realize when you're on the plane, like, there's no coming back from this.
Right.
This is your life now.
That's right.
I gotta commit to it, right? And so,
yeah. I mean, did you have any relatives here? Like, you landed in New York, correct?
Yeah, so it's such a funny story. I don't have relatives in America.
Wow.
And I didn't know anyone. And a few months, like a month before I could leave, like I got the visa the next month I was planning to leave. And then one of my aunts was like, "Oh, your cousin is there, like my dad's brother's daughter is she's doing some
Oh, wow.
like she was doing some internship, and she was like, oh, she's not there for long, but maybe you can meet with her.
Yeah.
So I think, at least for the first 2 weeks, she was here like for 2 or 3 weeks when I got here. I felt like at least like I had some. I mean, I haven't seen her for 10 years at that time, so it was like seeing somebody I haven't seen for ages.
Right.
It's basically like meeting a new person, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like we saw each other as kids, and then when I saw her, it's like at least I had somebody there for like 2 weeks, but after that I had to like sort of figure myself out, like figure
Right.
life
Yeah,
out.
Karmen, here you go. 2 weeks. Figure your life out in America, Karmen. Let's go. 2 weeks.
I mean, that's literally what she said. She's like, I'm here for 2 weeks. You got to figure out a job and a place to stay, because then I go back to South Africa. And I was like, okay.
Wow. I mean, when you landed, did you go and like stay at a hotel? Like what? I mean,
before that like even came about, my initial plan was I sold everything I owned and I packed 2 suitcases. So I just came here with 2 suitcases, like my whole life, 2 suitcases.
Wow.
And the plan was to land here and then like go and stay at a hostel. Because I reached out to people, like friends of friends, like, I have a person. And no, people weren't, I think, cautious, because I didn't understand the culture in New York, and then I got to, and so I came in with 2 bags. The plan was to stay in a hostel, and then of course this cousin who then connected, like maybe a week before I could fly out, she was like, hey, I'm like staying in this like guest house, and you can sleep on this cot, like the little couch, right? Yeah. I slept on this like 2-seater couch for like a week and a half, and then I got a job the next week, and then I got a place to stay like a few days.
What was the job? What was the job, Karmen?
Engineering.
Oh, wow. And within 1 week you got a job.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Your resume must be incredible for you to just land a job within a week.
I mean, you know what? I was selling myself short. I was applying. I was doing nanny. Like the day I got to, the very next day, I sort of got a job to just nanny these kids in the neighborhood where she was living, to make some extra cash. And then I was still like applying to be like a waitress, like a nanny, because I was like, I'm a foreigner. I've done my research. Like, they don't hire foreigners for like professional jobs. I'm going to be an Uber driver, something. So I just like sent out a bunch of emails for that. And no one really came back with like, hey, I want you permanently. And so I randomly sent my resume on a Craigslist ad. Like, it wasn't even a professional ad. It was like seeking drafting and like a design engineer. And I was like, I'm just going to send it. I don't even know if they will accept it. Yeah. And the next day they called me. They're like, I'll never forget. It was like Martin Luther King Day, 17th of January. I remember. 18th of January. They called me and they said, can you come for an interview tomorrow morning? Sure. I did not bring any interview clothes because I didn't think I was going to be a professional person. Like, I just wore like t-shirts and pants. So I had to go to like Target, scrape up some cash, buy like some, like, I didn't even know stores here. So I just like, the only thing that was a Target, and I bought like a shirt and I went into the interview, and they're like, oh, we just wanted to see if you were real, and can you start? When can you start? And I was like, I can start today. They were like, do you want to start tomorrow? I'm like, sure. They're like, how much do you want? Like, name a price. And in retrospect, I should have asked for a lot more than what I did. I literally asked for I was literally grateful that somebody was willing to employ me. And I just asked for like the minimum wage at the time. Like, that's literally what I asked for. But it wasn't bad. It was something that pays the bills and put food on the table.
See, that's a trick question, Karmen. As someone who's a former finance girl, I used to work on the trading floor in New York City. And as a former, that's like the trick
Wow.
that I learned. Yeah, I've lived a couple of lives.
Wow.
When I used to work, the one thing that I would notice that when I would go on job interviews, they're like, "What do you want?" They're like, "How much do you want?" I'm like, "How much is the job offering?" Like, don't be trying to play me like that shit. Like, next thing you know, I'm underselling myself, and that's the kind of shit they look for. They're like, "Oh, cool! It's a what $120,000 job, and I'm gonna pay you $80,000. Here you go." And it's like, that's bullshit. Like, pay me $120,000. Like, that's that's what the job requires.
I mean, I was desperate. I literally had like a few days to get my shit together, and I was desperate because I didn't know anyone, so I was just like, I need like pay me. I don't give a damn about how much.
That's right. Because you're at this point, you're just like, this is just about survival right now. Like, I just need to survive. Period.
Yeah.
Holy shit. So, Karmen, 5 years. So you get this job, and then I mean, you're what, like a design engineer? Is that what you are? What kind of engineer?
I'm a mechanical engineer. I specialize in like power engineering and turbine design and boiler design. So basically, power stations. Like, I've designed a few power stations. Like,
what stations?
Power stations, like nuclear power stations, gas power stations, so the huge turbines that you see on the ads, like, I've actually designed some of those things and did those stress analytic calculations. It sounds fancy. It's not that.
It sounds pretty fancy to me. It sounds very fancy, Karmen. Sounds very fancy. Man, so you land this job, and then what? You're just like, all right, I got to get myself an apartment.
I have to get a place to stay. Now, in New York, you need a guarantor, you need references, you need a credit score. I don't have a credit score.
That's right.
And at that time, I didn't realize all those things. I was just looking for places to stay. I didn't realize I needed a guarantor and all of that. And then I just so happened to be in the break room, and one of my colleagues, who was a structural engineer at the time, walked in, and she's talking to another person, and she's like, "I'm looking for a roommate. Like, I need a roommate, blah, 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 blah."
Yeah.
And then that's how it happened.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Karmen, your story is almost like, I talk a great deal to my guests here about spirituality and alignment. So I'm a big believer of that. I don't know if you are a big believer of that, but it's almost like, it's not almost, it is absolutely, you were absolutely meant to be in America. You were absolutely meant to, like, everything just aligned for you, right? It's like, things just work, right?
Yeah.
Just like you said, you were never intended to be in America. I was never intended to be in Los Angeles. That was never part of the plan.
Oh, really?
I never even think about Los Angeles, ever. Never even thought about it.
But the weather's so nice. I thought,
Listen, as someone who's never been to LA, and as a New Yorker, when you hear fellow New Yorkers take a shit on LA all the time, you're like, oh, LA must be fucking crap. Like, even though the weather's nice, the people are garbage. Like, I don't want to go. Right? Yeah. And then I actually I had started doing stand-up. I was like new to stand-up. I was doing a set at the New York Comedy Club, and a friend of mine was watching he came to watch the set, and he goes, "Hey, there's this Indian movie after party. There's like this, do you know Ajay Naidoo? You know who he is, the actor, Ajay Naidoo? He was in Office Space. That was the movie was like, it's a cult classic in America. It's like a very big thing. And anyway, so I got invited to this after party, and I started talking to this Indian actor, Ajay Mehta. His name is Ajay Mehta. It's funny. And Ajay was there. I'm like, oh my God, Ajay Mehta, I'm such a fan of yours, man. I see you in commercials and stuff. And he goes, what do you do? I'm like, oh, my name is Mona. I'm a stand-up comic. I just did some stuff. And he's like, Mona, what are you doing in New York? He's like, you seem like you have outgrown New York. You have to go to Los Angeles. And I was like, why? Why do I have to go to Los Angeles? He's like, that is where all the auditions are, all the television, all the film. You have to go there. And I was like, I don't know. And I called up my manager the next day, and I was like, hey, I met this dude, this really cool actor, Ajay Mehta, and he thinks that I should go to Los Angeles. And my manager was like, I agree with him. You should move to Los Angeles. And I was like, what?
Wow. And so you were doing comedy full time at that point?
No. I had just started. I had my day job, and then I would do comedy at night. So yeah, I had my day job at the time. So I wasn't doing comedy. No, I was like maybe a year or 2 years into doing comedy. If that. And then he was like, yeah. And then I got a role in a Steven Spielberg project, a lead role in a Steven Spielberg project that asked me to audition for. And then my manager was like, yeah, I think this is absolutely a sign from God. You should go to Los Angeles. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? This is crazy. So it almost feels like that. Like when things are meant for you, it's effortless. Stuff just happens.
And I totally agree, because I mean, it's such a long story. If I tell you my whole journey leading up to coming to New York, I had so many things that were like blocking what I wanted for myself. In terms of like work, in terms of like improving my, just general things. Like I think like in a space of 2 years, I was like in 10 car accidents where I just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Like my car was like written off. I was like in hospital multiple times for like accidents, like I had a freak, I wouldn't say freak accident, it was like, one was a car accident, and I had a necro appendix like the year before I did this whole thing, where it's like they found out that like my appendix did not burst, it just died and cut off circulation, and it was on the point of being like septic in my stomach, and I didn't know, I didn't feel it, and they were like, it's amazing that you're alive because you did not feel it.
Thank and I was like, God, Karmen, wow.
I was like, I don't feel it, and actually used it as a case study at the hospital. And like, they were like, can we use it as a case study, because this is real, it's a rare situation. Like it happens, but it's very rare.
Right.
So I had like a lot of stuff where it was like, I thought I was not gonna see 30. Like I thought my life was not gonna see 30, and then this happened, and when I came to America, it's like, that whole process just like clicked, everything like
that's right, because everything just aligned, right? No effort, just everything just aligned. Isn't it amazing, Karmen? Like, I feel that way a lot of times. I mean, look, this business that we're in the comedy business, it's a tough freaking business, right? It's a hard nut to fucking crack, right? To even become, I mean, it's taken me almost 10 years to become full-time, right? They're like, that's, and this is me putting in about 80, 100-hour weeks. I'm not kidding.
Yeah, I mean, I know. I said that I think we did some show.
The show, we did the show recently,
Yeah, and I said, you're one of the hardest working comedians I know. Because, I mean, I know we don't hang out and like you're on the other side and whatever, but from what I see, and I know the brief conversations we had, like you're always working, you're always posting, you're always grinding, you know what I mean? Like that's a full-time job. And I know you were like, oh, I transitioned, and I actually still have my full-time job because I have responsibilities, so, and it's hard, like you have your full-time job and then you grind. Like every night I would try to be out there and put stuff out there, and then you're waking up at 6 a.m. in the morning. I manage a team. Like it's not like I'm just typing data entries or like I'm litterally doing stuff that like people can get hurt, you know what I mean? So, because I'm designing like buildings and stuff now.
Right.
So I wake up 6 a.m. in the morning, get to work, go to construction site with a helmet and harness and like climbing up like racks and stuff like that. And then, finish that and then go to comedy. And that's still my grind now, actually. I've never transitioned because I'm not represented. Everything I do on my own. I don't, and also I'm still sort of young in America. So I'm still sort of trying to navigate this Hollywood comedy, whatever.
Look, you've only been in America for 5 years. I think you're doing extraordinarily well, I must confess. Like you're doing incredibly well. 5 years. When I moved at 15, I didn't know my ass from the hole in the ground. Jesus Christ, I didn't know nothing, But I think for you, where it probably paid off is you were already a professional. You already had your degree. You were already you were already a mature, grounded person, and then got this opportunity to come to America, and then everything just aligned for you. So it's beautiful. I love all of it. I think it's such a great story.
Yeah. I mean, it was hard work, and, there was a lot of lonely nights. Like, New York, you're a New Yorker, people aren't that friendly. People aren't that welcoming.
No.
So I was very depressed and lonely for 2 years. And actually 2 years later, the company downsized that I was working for. So I lost my job and then I was unemployed for like a year.
Wow.
So when I first met you was when I was unemployed. You booked me for one of your shows.
Oh, well,
And so I think when I messaged you, I said, "Is this pay?" Because if I wasn't gonna work because I was doing like TaskRabbit at the time to try and make extra cash and stuff.
Yeah.
So I thought, I'd ask because then I'll be like, okay, so then if I get $20, it's worth my time. Then I can pay for rent. And so I was homeless and eating like I wouldn't say homeless. I was unemployed and eating canned baked beans. And then after that,
been there, Karmen.
It was a whole thing. And then after that, I had a brief period of homelessness.
Wow.
And then now I'm engaged. It's such a story. Now I'm engaged.
Oh, I love that.
To a guy I was dating that when I didn't have a place to stay, told me, come and sleep on my couch. You can have my bed and until you figure yourself out. And now I'm marrying the same man that I thought, like, I was like, dude, I don't want to date you. Like,
that is so wonderful. But clearly was he when he invited you to come and you can sleep on my bed, was he also supposed to be sleeping in the same bed at the same time?
No, like he was genuinely being like, I want to help you. He's like, I can see you don't have like strong like roots here. Like I can see because what happened with that is like he actually offered to help me move my stuff, and I was supposed to move into an apartment that I was subletting. And then the lady decided, I'm not going to sublet it to you. So on the day when I was supposed to meet her with my stuff, she was like, I'm actually Airbnb-ing it. She didn't answer my call. She just sent me a text and switched her phone off.
Oh my God.
So it was like a whole...
That sounds like a New Yorker.
It was like a whole random, like it was like high, low, high. So it was like, it sounds easy, but it's like, it was a journey,
That's crazy, Karmen. So Karmen, when you're like homeless, as you call yourself, were you crashing on friends' couches? Like where are you?
Because he offered, so I would leave my stuff at his place, but because I didn't know him that well at the time, like I knew him for like a month, I would like sleep like 2 days on his couch, 2 days and another. Like I had like comedy friends who'd be like, you can sleep here, like other friends in the community, like you can sleep one night at my couch. So wherever I was doing a show, if I was doing a show in the Bronx, I'm sleeping at someone's couch, like someone I knew, and I'd literally have, like the trolley bag, like the airport bag,
my God.
So I'd be like walking around with the airport bag or like a huge, I used to do construction, like, cause I got back at that time when I got a job, then I became homeless. That's just so funny. Like when I didn't have a job, I had a home, and then when I got a job, I became homeless, and then I was like back in construction. So I had like hard hats, I had overalls, I had like my sleeping clothes, like a whole thing, and I'll just like lug it to sites and stuff, and like if I'm on construction site, use the showers and try and figure it out.
Wow, Karmen, that is quite the story. I mean, so how many years in were you when you started doing comedy? And what got you into comedy?
I started comedy in South Africa, actually.
Oh,
I started in like 2012, and when I started, there was like not many female comedians. Like at that time in 2012, 2013, it was like a handful of female comedians, and it wasn't.
Yeah, I was one of them. Like I was like about 3 years in at the time.
Yeah. So
like
there wasn't many, and then there was like maybe one. I was like the only one mainstream brown female comedian at the time. So it was easier for me because people would book me because they were like, yeah, you're brown, can you MC my wedding? So I'd like MC weddings and stuff.
Got it. How long were you doing and by the way, where in South Africa are you from? I didn't ask you that.
I'm from Durban.
Got it.
Like mini India, it's like the largest population of the Indian diaspora outside India.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah. Because Karmen, you're a mix of Indian, or are you purely Indian blood?
So I identify as South African Indian, which is like a very unique culture. But I am mixed. Like my grandmother is Zulu and Scottish. heritage. Yeah. So like my mom is like North, like my grandfather is like North Indian, I think, like on the border of Nepal or something. His family comes from, and
Okay.
my grandmother was what they in South Africa call colored, but she's like mixed race basically.
Got it. Got
Yeah.
it. Got it. And Carmen, what faith were you raised as? Were you guys raised as Hindus? Like, what were you guys raised as?
Oh wow. So my mom's actually a Christian.
Okay.
And my grandfather is a pastor. My mom's dad is a pastor. And he had a
what? I'm
church.
sorry?
A pastor.
Pastor. Okay,
I have
pastor.
to say it like an American pastor,
I was like,
but a
I
pastor.
thought you said pasta. I was like, is he Italian? I didn't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pastor.
Okay.
Yeah. Pastor.
Pastor.
That makes more sense when I said pastor. I have to roll the R.
Pastor. Anna.
Yeah.
We don't say
Yeah.
Anna. We say Anna. Yeah, I get it.
Anna.
Like,
Yeah. So here's a pastor, and so my mom's Christian. My father is actually he has South Indian heritage, and he is very. So I'm fifth generation, just to put it in perspective. And I think most people know like the history of Indians coming to South Africa. Like we've been there for almost 200 years now.
Wow.
So through the Dutch East Indian trade, they brought a lot of Indians as workers, helpers.
Yeah.
We know what that meant, right?
We know exactly what that means, Carmen.
So yeah, like my ancestors came as indentured servants and worked on the sugarcane fields in South Africa, basically.
Wow.
But the culture, because there's such a large population, the culture sort of preserved itself in some ways, like So my father, like they used to have underground temples. Like they used to have, because they couldn't practice their faith openly, and they would have underground, like back in the days. Like
why couldn't they practice their faith openly?
Because the colonizers came, and there's that whole thing. Like we might into the whole. It's a whole nother conversation, which I feel like that's a whole nother podcast. You know what I mean?
But dedicate an entire episode to underground temples.
Right. So my father's family is actually Hindu, and I was raised like culturally, and I'm not sure if it's the same thing in India, but like in South Africa, you would follow whatever religion your father is. So is that the same thing in India? Like you would follow what your father is?
I think India is like that, and of course Pakistan is definitely.
I mean the continent. Sorry,
it's very patriarchal, right? So whatever the father is what the kids follow.
What the kids would follow. Yeah. So I was raised Hindu. I went to temple with my grandmother. I used to like be part of the bhajan group, go to satsang. I did all the things, but I would go to a Catholic school. I went to a Catholic school. So I would read the Bible and go to the chapel and stuff, but my faith was like Hindu, but I still like go to church, and I sang in the church choir, and it was the whole thing.
And Carmen, so by the time you came along and went to school, there were Hindu temples then that you could easily go and practice.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about like 1700s, like
got it.
Yeah, like when they first came in. Yeah,
at the turn of the century, they were like, all right, let's Hindus have their temple. Which
I think just before when Gandhi came in, then things sort of changed for Indian people. They weren't just seen as property; they were seen as like citizens, because before that they weren't given citizenship, and so they had no rights. They weren't even seen as people, so they didn't even have. Their document was like just like a number. Like they weren't even given like paper. Like their paper was a number with it'll show like your the farm that you were like working on, and who was the person that you were working for, and what's your years of service. Some people had like 30 years of service, because the thing was like the way they sort of sold it to like poor Indian people, right? They would say, oh, you come to the new land, you work for, you can pay for your passage if you work for 10 years to pay your passage. You work for nothing, right? You don't get paid.
Jesus.
And then when they came here, obviously no one speaks English, so they just think, oh, okay, whoever's translating, right? They come here and then they work for 10 years, and they're like, oh, well, but we had to feed your kids. You had kids. you got married, like we had to, so now you have to pay for their freedom as well. And if you want to go back to India, then you have to work another 10 years for your passage to go back. So that's how a lot of Indian people, is like, you work there for 20, 30 years. Like, how are you going to go back? Like, you have to work another 10 years for passage to go back to India. Like, how are you going to go back, right? You can't go back, right? So it's, and you know, that happened at the turn of the century where the British actually abolished slavery. You know, they abolished slavery, and then America's like, no, we want to keep our slaves. You know, that whole thing that happened.
Hold up, Britain. Don't get all progressive on me there.
Yeah, Britain was, and then the Boston Tea Party happened, and America's like, no, we want to say that, and the whole thing, right? And so basically, Britain was like, abolish slavery, and then they were like, oh no, but we still need free labor, so this was the plan, this was the option, and that's how you ended up getting Indians in Caribbean islands, Fiji, and South Africa were the main exports.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I know that there's a lot of fucked up history in South Africa when it comes to, you know, Indians, when it comes to Black people, and just the history is so messed up. But the fact that our people we were just a number, like not even actual people. You know what's interesting about what you were describing about, hey, you have to work 10 years. It kind of reminds me of what's happening in the UAE. I don't know how much you know, or if you go to Dubai, but that's kind of what they do to people who are coming from Pakistan or even India and Nepal, and basically poorer countries. And the employers are like, yeah, I'm gonna hold on to your passport, like, you know. You're not leaving the country until I permit you to leave the country. So it's a form of, like, you know, modern day slavery in some ways.
And that's how it started, was when they tried to abolish slavery. They were like, there's a contract. This is not really slavery. Like, they're working for their passage, and then they're free to do what they want. But like, you weren't really free because of South Africa and apartheid was happening. Like, there was so many layers to what was happening. Like, you weren't really free. You couldn't just go and like, oh, I did my 10 years. Now you literally have nothing. You have nothing. Where do you go? You work for free for 10 years of passage. Then like, what do you do? You know.
So wait a minute. If on an everyday basis, if you need to go and purchase something, so you don't have actual monies to go and buy something?
No, they would provide. I think they used to give just like how in slavery they give you provisions. They give like provisions to the workers and say, this is your food and stuff.
Wow, like, here, this much ration. Here's a shack for you to live in.
Yeah, a little house.
Yeah, maybe find another person who's also a number, doesn't have an actual name, and then you can procreate with them, and then work for their freedom for another 10 years.
Yeah.
Holy shit. So
and I think just depended. It depended where you know. And I don't know the details, but it depends. Like, some people would say like, oh, they got like maybe 10 cents a day, and I'm like, oh, well, that's still nothing, right? It's like
10 cents a day.
Some depending where they work, you know.
Wow. I mean, Karmen, I always think that the Indian culture is pretty deeply ingrained in the South African culture. Am I correct to understand that?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
It is. It's very much so.
And how is the Indian community in South Africa, because they've lived there for 200 years, as you mentioned? So is there also a level of anti-Blackness in the South Asian community there, or ethnic community?
I feel like it's like such a common thing due to colonization. You go anywhere, you know, in brown, and like, you know, in the diaspora, right? Regardless, Pakistan, India, Bengali, right? In the diaspora, right? You have colorism, right? If you light, you good.
That's right.
If you're dark, then it's like, you know.
Listen, I was bullied all my childhood for being a very dark-skinned child. I was very.
You are not dark-skinned, though. I think you're very light-skinned.
Really? See, it's interesting, because when I was in Pakistan, because I grew up in Karachi, and Karachi is like super hot. It's like 120 degrees. Our summers go up to be 120 degrees.
Yeah.
And I would get really, really dark. And it was a thing in our family. Like, my mom's very fair-skinned, so a lot of times, like, a lot of times we would go to weddings and, stuff and gatherings. And, my mom would be like, I don't know why she looks like this. Like, look at me. I'm so fair skinned.
Wow.
I don't know why my mom was being a little
Did
bitch.
they like force you to wear like, I don't know, what's that skin lightening cream?
You're talking about you're talking about Fair and Lovely?
Fair Lovely, yeah. I knew Lovely was in there. I knew it was like a lovely. Because it's so weird, like all those things that they use to weaponize and like provide to our communities to like have the Eurocentric look. It's always had lovely, like dark and lovely to relax your hair, fair and lovely to lighten your skin. Like it's just like, if it's lovely in there, you're like,
Yeah. When there's lovely in there, there's some bullshit that's about to be served.
Yeah.
There's some bullshit. Yeah, if there's some lovely, it's just like, oh, so you're basically insulting me and being like, but you'll be lovely when you wear this.
Yeah.
No, my mom, we never used Fair and Lovely. My mom used to bleach my skin. She would like bleach my
really?
my neck, my chest, my arms. It was.
Do you have like scars or anything? Like,
no. You don't get scars from it or anything. You don't get scars. But eventually, if you keep using that fucking thing and you don't use SPF, which we didn't really have the knowledge for back then, you eventually develop skin cancer. I mean, it's bleach on your skin. Like it's not good for you. It's gonna give you skin cancer.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just like a repercussion of like colonialization. Like you think about it, any country that got colonized, even like black countries, right? Like black communities, like that light skin thing is a huge thing. Yes, there's racism between like if you're black, like people are more racist towards you, and then it's a whole like hierarchy. But then even in that community, it's like colorism. And then you go deep in the community, it's like, oh, what's your religion? Are you Hindu? Are you Christian? Are you Muslim? Then it's like, oh, what's your caste? Like, I think now in South Africa, that idea of like, oh, I'm from a certain caste is sort of like died down. But there's still some people where they're like, oh, I'm like Gujarati and I can only marry a Gujarati person and I can only marry a person that's a Patel or something like that, right? So like I know that like still happens, but it's not as evident as it was maybe 20 years ago.
Sure. Because I mean, there's a lot more like social media is changing a lot of people's mindsets. There's a lot of like people meeting up, like a lot of people hooking up. Is this a thing in the South Asian community in South Africa where there's intermix with they're marrying white people or they're marrying black people, and is it accepted or is it not accepted?
I mean, I think that answer is pretty clear because it's like it's a universal answer. Like if you were Indian and you brought a white guy home, your family would be like, oh, that's okay, Mona, because your children will be fair, right? But right, at least they'll be like, no, it's fine. At least the children, and like white people get excited when they have a seat at a table where there's people of color. They're like, ooh, the flavors. Oh my God, what is this? Oh my God, the smell. Like you making a cup of tea, like not even chai tea, just a cup of tea. And they'll be like, ooh, the smell. How did you make this? It's so delicious. Oh my God, you know what I mean? And so like, brown moms have egos, right? Brown families, the women in the family have egos. They're
just like, a little bit, Karmen, just a little bit,
right? And they're like, oh yeah, they love my cooking. They love my cooking, And but I feel like just when you bring a white person because they're light skinned, they come from the colonizers, right? And then people look at them and then they're like, oh, at least the children will be fair, and oh, maybe he's rich. They'll always look at, if you're a person of color, they're like, oh, she must be with him because he's really rich, or she must be with, we hear these things, right? The same thing that happens in South Africa. But then if you are marrying or dating a black guy, I mean, now it's sort of accepted, but it's not common. It's not a common thing, right? And it depends on the family. Like, you're dating a black guy, you're dating someone that's like my grandmother who is mixed race, like Zulu and Scottish, right? But like you're dating somebody like that who has black in them, there's still this like stigma, like, oh, there's no culture, like whatever they want to say. I'm using stereotypes and I'm thinking of like stuff I heard, because I know like with my mom having that mixed background and like going out with her in public. And also like seeing what she had to experience and then I also have experience, and then my siblings have experience, and then I have other family. So like my family is a little different because everyone's like sort of intermingled. Like we have Muslims, Christians, like we celebrate all the holidays.
I love that. You guys are like, we're banging everybody.
Yeah, we like.
Ooh. What happened there? I thought we would. I can hear you.
Okay, I think my.
Oh, your things got disconnected.
Yeah, can you still hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Okay, so yeah, I think my family is like the exception. Like for every rule, there's an exception. And so I say, like, when people come to my family, like they come to my family functions, friends, they'll be like, oh wow, everyone's like so intermingled and blah blah blah. And I was like, no, this is an exception to the rule. Like if you go to a traditional South African Indian family, you're not going to see that. It's not like so common. You know what I mean? They really stick to themselves.
Right. Am I echoing?
No.
Somehow I'm echoing on my side. Oh, maybe not. Okay, maybe not anymore. It's interesting, Karmen, because Pakistani families in even America, like if a girl brings home a white dude, it's a no. It's
really?
No. It's like a no.
Do you think they're more accepting to a white guy than a black guy?
They'll be more accepting to a white guy than a black guy. Yes, I would agree with that. 100%. But
that's what I'm saying.
The first priority would be a Pakistani or a Muslim man, and then a white guy, and then everybody else, whether it's black, Latino, Asian, whatever. It's everything else. So that it's a hierarchy, just like you said, right? It's a hierarchy in our mind. Because for us, the biggest thing is he Muslim? Like, are the children going to be Muslim? Like, that's a really big deal.
I think in Muslim culture, like if I look back, like Muslim Indian culture in South Africa, like in Muslim Indian culture, at least like the people I know, they're like, if you're Muslim, then that's fine, And then it's like, are you Muslim first? And then it goes.
That's correct. So even if you're black, but if you're Muslim, it's fine. You're fine. Yeah. So that's not the issue, right? Because we don't. I think mostly in the Muslim culture, and I feel like even in the Pakistani culture, it's like I know Pakistani women who are married to black men. They have But the number one thing was, are they Muslim? That was the number one thing. So also because I don't know if you know this, but black people in Islam hold a pretty high status in the history of Islam, because because when Prophet Muhammad was driven out of Mecca and he went to Medina, which is where he ended up basically spreading Islam and ended up basically
the Kaaba is where people go and do
that's the Kaaba, in Saudi Arabia. That's the Kaaba. So the Kaaba is in Mecca. So Prophet Muhammad, when he was spreading Islam, the people of Quraysh, as they called them, because that was the nation, they were all very divided. There were like thousands of gods. So that Kaaba, that black box that you see, people would bring their gods there, and it would be a place of worship. So and when people heard about this guy named Muhammad, because Prophet Muhammad didn't get prophesied till he was like 40 years old. So when he came back and he was like, look, I went to the mountains, God spoke to me. He said that we are all one people, that there's only one God. There's only, one God. There's not multiple gods. There's only one God. So, and people felt very threatened. They're like, well, but I have my God. Like, why are you telling me there's only one God? Like, I have my God. And a lot of people just ganged up and they were like, get the hell out of here. So they kicked Prophet Muhammad out, right? And he was basically driven out, and he went to Medina. And Medina is where he really grounded himself, started spreading Islam, got major followers, and then ended up making peace with the people of Quraysh. And they were like, okay. So he requested, he's like, hey, can I come back to Mecca? Can I go to Kaaba and do the first prayers? And they were like, sure, you can come back.
But that's where they would that Kaaba. That's where they would bring all their gods, right?
That's correct.
Is that why inside the Kaaba it's sealed? But I was watching a documentary where they said there's like little statues and stuff like that. Is that?
I believe there were. My understanding of the Kaaba is that the statues were destroyed at some point. At least that's my understanding. I don't know what the inside of a Kaaba looks like, because maybe I should look that up. But I've never seen.
Yeah. I know people have like different theories about
Yeah.
it. So
There's a cornerstone on the Kaaba. I've performed the Holy Pilgrimage 3 times. And
nice.
and I remember going and I remember being by the Kaaba, and there's a stone on the corner of the Kaaba. It's called Hajar Aswad. And what Hajar Aswad, we believe, is a stone that came from heaven, Karmen. I don't know. I don't know who came up with this.
Wow.
But it is shaped, Karmen. It is shaped like the vajayjay. Okay. It's
like the vagina?
It's shaped like the vagina. So people like to go and
I heard that it was shaped like, I don't know if you know, in Hinduism they have something called the lingam, the Shiva lingam.
Yes, the Shiva lingam. Yes.
Yeah, which is the black stone. Like
yes.
And I heard, people have all these theories, and people have these discussions. They're like, it's shaped like the Shiva lingam.
Interesting. I remember it being like, it's like this. It's like when you go, and if you get an opportunity, because everybody's trying to get in there and kiss it, of course they are.
Yeah.
Of course they are.
It's
And when Prophet Muhammad came back, so they asked him, the people of Quraysh asked him, they're like, who are you going to send in to conduct the first Muslim prayers? And he sent Bilal, who was a black man. So,
okay.
He was a black man. So he said, no, I'm not going to go and do the first prayers. This black man is going to go and do the first prayer. So Bilal was his name.
And so, but did they know how to do the first prayers? Like how did, I have so many questions now, because I'm like, how did they know? Like, did they know?
I mean, who knows? Like at that time, he was getting prophesied, and he was getting all these prophecies when he would do his prayers. And he was like, oh, we have to do these prayers 5 times a day. That's what God is telling me. Originally, believe it or not, Karmen, Muslims were supposed to do about 50 prayers a day. I'm like, who's got time for that?
Yeah, right.
Don't we have like stuff to do? What are you talking about? 50. And then God was like, let me make a discount. How about 5? We settle on 5. And then we're like, sure, we'll pray 5 times.
So you guys pray 5 times a day?
Yeah, well, the more religious people do.
The more religious. I'm asking you all these questions like you were there when the Kaaba was happening. I'm asking you questions like you were there at the first prayer. I'm like, yeah, so what did Muhammad tell you? Right? Did Muhammad tell you to
How did it go down? What was he wearing?
Who was he wearing? Who was he wearing?
Who are you wearing today? Who are you wearing today, Prophet Muhammad? Who are you wearing today? Like, just like
shoes from Jesus.
Shoes from Jesus, exactly. Did Moses style you today? It's like, is this the burning bush label?
Burning bush label. Yeah,
the burning bush label. But yeah, that's why there's a great deal of significance in Islam for Black people. Yeah, it's true.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I know like in Northern Africa and East, about the north part, like Northern Hemisphere, like Islam is huge. You go to east and west, but like just the northern part. But if you come down to the south, like southern hemisphere, like just past the equator, then it's more like Christian based because of the evangelists and stuff, like
sure. I mean, Spain was dominated by Muslims at one point, and then of course the conquistadors came and then drove the Muslims out of Spain.
Oh,
Spain,
really?
Spain has all like.
Oh,
Muslim
yes, Spain. Yes. When you said Spain, I was thinking South America. I'm so sorry. Like, I don't know why.
No. I'm talking about.
I was like, wow, you guys went all the way to South America. Like,
girl,
oh my God, I'm gonna go.
We weren't putting in that kind of commute.
Muhammad, like.
No. Girl, we weren't going to put in that kind of commute. That's too much. It's too much of a commute. It's too much.
Oh, wow.
No, Spain has like a very rich Muslim history, but then when the conquistadors came, they drove the Muslims out. So that's why a lot of these ISIS assholes constantly, that's one of their part of their rhetoric that they talk about Al Qaeda and even when Bin Laden was alive. They would talk about, we will go back and reclaim Spain as ours. And it's like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Take a seat, sir.
Now.
Yeah, take a seat, sir.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's it's pretty intense. History, I love history. It's like,
me too.
Intense. Like, there's so many different, and the thing is, I'm always skeptical. I like to read every person's point of view on it and make my own judgment, only because most history books were written by the colonizers.
Sure. Yes.
Like the history is always written by the ones that
won the war.
yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Karmen, this is turning into a history lesson, and I love every second of it. I do wanna kind of venture out and ask you. So, how long were you doing comedy in South Africa before you moved to the U.S.? Were you doing it for just a couple of years? And
Oh no, so I started like what
2012, you said?
2012, 2013, 2012.
Got it. So, and then
I
you
have
moved to
to
the U.S. in 2015.
Yeah, yes. No,
So-
2016. January 6th, 2016.
January 6, 2016. So you've been doing comedy for about 3-4 years. What got you into comedy in South Africa, and what is comedy like in South Africa?
Comedy like in South Africa is like a new baby. Everyone's so excited, like at least when I started, like it was so exciting. So I've been doing like what 8 years now, 7-8 years, I guess. So when I started in South Africa, it was like it was still new. You go to an open mic, it'll be like 50 people. 50 people want to be at an open mic.
How many people? So
50,
few?
50.
Wow.
It's like a show. It's like a show. Like you can go to some open mics in South Africa and it's like a show because people want to watch comedy. They'll pay to watch comedy. Russell Peters comes out all the time in South Africa. People love him.
Yeah. Russell's very big there. Yeah.
Yo, like I've been to, I think almost all his shows in South Africa.
Wow.
And he sells out. Like
I bet.
Sells out. Like people die. Like Russell doesn't even have to say anything. He just has to say hello, and they're like, "Oh my god, he's hilarious!" Oh my god. But it's still young in South Africa, so it's nice to go because people are excited about it. I don't know now with COVID and everything. I haven't been home since all of this has happened, but I'm not sure how it is now. But we have some great comedy writers. We have some. This Trevor Noah.
That's right.
Yeah. So
that's right. I mean, how long had Trevor been doing comedy before he moved to the U.S.? Because if 2012, if comedy was still new.
Yeah. So I'm cutting you. I think he started. Because he already shot like 2 South African specials, if I'm not mistaken, I think. So he was already 10 years in comedy. He came here just before he turned 30. He started comedy when he was about 17 or 18.
Oh, wow.
So he was already 10 years in. He's like finished school, started comedy, 17, 18.
Wow.
So like I met Trevor, I think, before I even knew I wanted to be a comedian. I actually met him at a show where the promoter didn't promote the show, and there was like 4 people in the audience. And the person I was dating at the time, it was me and him, and we were the only ones laughing because it was like the other 2 people was like somebody's parents who obviously didn't. And we were in this huge auditorium watching the show. And then I spoke to him, and he was at that time he just started comedy, and I was like in college. I just finished high school because he's like a year older than me. So that's how I know.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. So Trevor, so you go to watch, and so how was it that Trevor started at 17 and 18? So there wasn't probably any comedy scene when he started.
Yeah, there wasn't really a comedy. There was, I would say, people would have shows, like actual shows. There was no comedy clubs. There was no, you would actually put on a show, and people would, and then you'd have to explain to South Africans like, oh, it's a comedy show. What do you mean? Oh, this person's going to stand on the stage. Is it like a play? Like people are thinking like, is it a play? Like what is it? Like it wasn't like that stand-up culture wasn't there yet,
Right. So were there any open mics at the time even, or no? People are just going to shows?
I mean, at least like, before then, because I know when I was in college, I wanted to do stand-up. But there was no such thing as open mics. There was no comedians. It's like I didn't know. There was no Facebook as well at that time. I'm like telling you my age now. There was no Facebook at that time. And even when Facebook happened, like it wasn't like, what is a comedian, right? Like
I mean, you don't look a day over 30, so it's just,
Thank you.
So whatever it is that you're doing good. So just keep doing that.
It's the water from Africa.
It's the water from Africa. It's a South African water, man.
Yeah.
You need to bottle that up and start selling that shit. You're like, you want to look like this? South Africa.
South African water, yeah.
Durban.
Yeah, no, there was no open mics. When I started, there was one I think it was 2 open mics when I started, and that was in Johannesburg, but nothing in Durban, which is my hometown. I
Wow.
was living in Johannesburg at the time, and there was like 2 open mics that I knew at the time, and then you just do those 2 open mics, and there was one comedy club, and at the comedy club they would give you open spots, which is like an open mic. So they'll give you 5 minutes up top before each act, and you do like 5 minutes. And you'd have to sign up, and it's a whole process, and then you'll get this 5 minutes of fame, right, at this comedy club.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Are there a lot of comedy clubs and stuff in Durban and Johannesburg?
There was, and then COVID happened, Mona. So I heard, like, I actually was talking to a comedy friend the other day, and they were like, yeah, all the comedy clubs closed down. But people are producing shows, so they'll like run shows at parks, run shows at a bar.
I'm sure that they're gonna come back. Then they're gonna make a comeback.
Yeah, it is, but there's no actual like club like we used
Of course
to have
not.
Club, yeah.
How bad is COVID in South Africa?
It was bad. I feel like now they're getting a bit better because they've opened up. It was bad when the new strain, and it lasted like maybe a month or 2 months. But South Africa was really good on like nationwide shutting down. Like America, you guys have like federal laws and then state laws, and then each city does something different. And that's what I think messed up in America, because it wasn't like a nationwide mandate.
That's correct.
Like you see that other countries, like they might have been hit bad, but it was a nationwide mandate.
That's correct.
So they're okay now. Like they're slowly opening up, like sort of like New York, where you can go out, but you have to wear a mask on, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Karmen, when how different is the comedy scene in South Africa versus in New York? I mean, I believe that New York has the best comedy scene in the world, but you coming from South Africa, Loyiso. Loyiso. So I'm a big fan of Loyiso. I really like him.
Ola or Madinga?
Loyiso Ola. Ola? Is that, yeah. The
tall guy, really tall guy.
The tall guy, the one with the TV show. He has his own TV show. Yeah, that's him. Yeah, I really like him. I really like him. And he made a statement. He said that, he's like, watch, the next best comics that are going to come out are going to be coming out of South Africa. So I wanted to ask you, I was just like, wow, that's pretty confident and a bold statement to make. So as someone who is who has his footings in both countries, how do you feel about that? Like, do you feel like...
I agree in some ways because of the caliber that's like, Trevor Noah came out, but before Trevor Noah, they are like older comedians. We say the legends. We call them the legends, right? There's older comedians. Sure. Like David Powell, Kagiso Lediga, gosh, I always forget his name. Ronnie Madimola, Riyad Musa. Riyad Musa, very big.
I am in touch with Riyad Musa. He wants to bring me on his show, actually.
Yes, very funny guy. Yes. So like those were like the legends, like they had a TV show, they had a sketch TV show at that time, right? Wow. And so then obviously Trevor Noah came in after that, like that was the next school, right, of comedians. Yeah. And I think what South Africa, we have such a unique culture where we have the South African culture, but we also we're very diverse, we have like people that have ancestors or heritage from all over the world, but they make it very unique in South Africa. So we have a large Greek community, we have a large Indian community, obviously, right? We have a large Malay community, a large Chinese community, So you get to experience like all these different people that are literally like 4th and 5th generation in the country, right? And then obviously we have like cultural indigenous African people as well. Right. And I think, just that adversity and the history of our country, I think, it's not a far-fetched statement to make and say the next best thing will come out of South Africa, because, comedy and humor comes from a place of adversity. That's what I believe.
That's correct.
If you have enough adversity, then you will be funny, No one ever sees, no comedian that's ever done, like I'm saying, billionaire well, was somebody that came from a 2-family home and had, was great, was very secure. Like you're never gonna find that, right?
Correct.
Comedians we come from places of adversity. We had some sort of struggle, something that pushed us to these fringes of obscurity to find humor
That's
as
right.
a coping mechanism.
That's
right?
correct. That's correct.
So I
That's
don't think it's
correct.
far-fetched. And also, right, I've seen some of the comedians, they're hilarious. So I'm going to be biased. So ask me, I'm probably going to be biased. New York has great comedians, but it's so saturated.
Well,
In New York, everyone is so saturated.
Right.
It's like privilege, right? It's privilege. You can just do an open mic. You can do 5 shows in one night. South Africa, you can't do 5 shows in one night, right? 1 show maybe, right?
Right.
And you got to work for that. You got to make sure you want to get booked again. You got to have to be 10 out of 10.
Right. Is it more like, do South African comedians have the same kind of freedoms that we enjoy in America? Like, can you just go up there and just talk about anything?
Yeah.
So it's not like you can't say that, or that's not politically correct, or that's not, that's offensive.
I think there's a lot of stuff that is very faux pas. Like, you shouldn't say some things that like very alt-right. You know what I mean? Like no matter where you go, you're gonna use like you're gonna use the N-word, and you're not from that culture. Then that's like, you're gonna get canceled. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You're gonna say a off-brand.
So the same as America. It's pretty much the same thing then.
Yeah,
it's the same as America. Yeah, it's the same. It's not like, because I was talking to some female comics in Pakistan, because it's a brand new thing in Pakistan.
Oh wow.
It's a brand new thing.
Go and perform?
I probably am gonna end up performing when I do go to Pakistan, but I'm in touch with like their top female comics there, because I've had a couple of them on my show, and I'm gonna actually have one of them on my podcast for them to come and talk about. Yeah. But they tell me stuff where they're like, yeah, you make one wrong joke and they come for your neck and they come for your throat. So for instance, if you make fun of another city, so I come from Karachi, and if I make fun of for folks from Lahore, which is another city, then people are going to be like, "Oh, you're so offensive! How dare you say that about Lahore?" So they're very sensitive. Also, because the culture has never been used to having comedy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta fucking laugh at yourself at some point. Like, you gotta just let that shit go, and not
that's
be
the thing. That's the thing. Like in South Africa, we love to laugh at ourselves. So roast me, please roast me. Like,
I love that.
In South Africa, like you have some. That's why people love Russell Peters, because Russell Peters likes to come on the audience. They're like, yeah, talk about me, pick me.
Yeah.
What do you say about me? And you find that like it's more often you're gonna find audience members where they like that sort of.
Yeah. I've actually done shows here for Pakistani crowds. The worst, like just some of the worst. But these aunties and uncles, they need to either get laid or smoke ganja. I don't fucking know which one, or both. I don't know what's up. I remember doing this show. I got asked to MC this massive event here in Orange County, and it's all Pakistanis, and it's like this big fundraiser thing, and people are writing $25,000 checks and $50,000 checks for I'm there and I'm emceeing this thing, and I was doing crowd work, and I saw like one white couple sitting in a sea of brown people.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Hi, you're the minority tonight." And and it was funny. Like, a lot of people were laughing, and this auntie was sitting in the front, and she was like, I don't like that joke. I don't like that you pointed out. So then I just couldn't help myself.
I feel like that was a show you did in New York, because I remember doing one of your shows in New York.
Yeah.
And I had a great time, as always. You always put on a great show.
Thank you so much.
So if comedy doesn't work out for you, would you be my manager and producer? That's what I'm basically saying.
Sign me up, Karmen.
But I remember doing one of your shows, and I was surprised to see that there was some white people in Minority Reportz, and I had an old white couple that like messaged me on Facebook and followed me, and They came up to me after the show. They're like, "Oh my God, you were making fun of white people, and it was so funny." Like I was like, "Oh, you guys seems too rich and privileged to laugh at those jokes. You should have been offended." Like that's what I was thinking. But they loved it. They loved it. And I was like, wow, you actually had quite a few white people. Not that like comedy is race based, but it was that particular show I think was like Minority Report's Girls Night Out, and it was like
that's a girls' night. Yeah.
And so I was surprised to see like this group of old white, like middle, like 50s, mid 50s, 60s.
Don't you? I love people like that. You know why? Because this is how you break down barriers, and this is how you understand things. Like I got booked on this tour on the West Coast here, and
nice. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, this is like 2-3 years ago, but thank you. Thank you. But I remember I got booked at this casino in Arizona, in the middle of like Nevada. Now, if you've never been to Vegas or Nevada, Vegas is very different, but Nevada in general is a very conservative. It's very conservative. And I remember doing a show, and it was like a Sunday afternoon show, and it was all veterans. Everybody there was white and 50 plus.
Oh, wow.
Veterans. They were all veterans.
Wow.
I'm there, and I'm doing my sets. I was like, okay, can't make any Trump jokes, can't make any political jokes, gotta keep it, can't make sexual jokes. So you gotta keep it pretty clean, but pretty like family oriented.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm like, that's fine. I got that set. So I'm up there and I'm doing my set. I was like, hey guys, give it up for the veterans. I was like, thank you very much for your service. Right. You gotta pay homage. Like they served this great country. And this one young guy, like these two, like 30-year-olds are like sitting in the middle. And one young guy gets up, screams out, and he goes, liar, you don't care about this country, telling me because I look like this, And I was like, this motherfucker, I'm going to take his ass down right now. And I was like, hey, man, hey, who's running the lights? I was like, can you turn the lights on and put the spotlight on the person who just said that?
Yeah.
I was like, hey, man, come on. You don't want to talk now? I was like, oh, you're not such a big boy now when the light's on you, huh? I was like, who here wants this guy to shut up? And everybody started clapping. I'm like, great, you got the message. Now shut the fuck up. Bring the lights down. And then I went back into my set, right?
Wow.
But sometimes you got to do that. You got to put people in their place because as a comic, when you go up and perform, like if somebody else is heckling you and they're taking control, you're screwed. Like you better step up and you better take charge.
You gotta stand your ground. I remember doing a show in Dallas, Texas.
Oh boy.
I was there, and it was my first time in Texas. Wow. I literally was at a barbecue.
Was it at a club or what?
It was at Dallas Comedy Club. Nice place. And so I got booked to headline that club that night.
Oh my God.
Wow. For the weekend, and they were like, oh, do you want to headline? And then I was like, ooh, okay. I've never done an all-white crowd before. Like this was like all-white, Republican state. Like in my mind, I'm like, oh my God, they want to hang me by the noose. You know what I mean? So let me try and do like, sort of family-friendly material. Yeah. But I'll throw one white joke in, like one jab at a white, and see how if they take to it, then I'll throw another.
Sure.
So I go in. And I'm like, I throw one, and they loved it. And I just started doing all of it. I was like, wow, this is very, like, all of them look like Trump supporters, but they were very liberal. I was so confused.
Oh, yeah, Dallas is like that. Dallas is like
they
that.
They look like KKK, but inside they were like Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter inside.
Karmen. Holy shit. They don't look like KKK. You're so funny. No, Dallas people are all right. They're pretty all right, But when you go into, I think for me, like the takeaway lesson for me was these people were so sweet. They were so nice. And, they came and like bought my t-shirts and took pictures with me and took my autographs, and they were just lovely, right? And I was like, honestly, I think it's the one thing that, we see differences on the surface. Oh, you're brown, you're black, you're white, you're this, you're that. But it's like when you actually get to know people and when you actually get to talk to people and share your personal stories, everybody connects. Everybody connects, right? Everybody is seeking the same thing deep down, right? You're looking for love, you're looking for security, you're looking for fun, you're looking for happiness. Like, so for me, it was like a big takeaway lesson where I was just like, okay, well, I don't have to sit here and shove my fucking political views down somebody's throat, right? I can throw that out. This is not the crowd for that. So I think it's for me, like, every time I do comedy shows, I feel like I walk away a better person because I learned something more about humanity. Karmen, you are what? How many years are you? And so you've been doing since 2012. So you've been doing comedy for a little bit, right?
Yeah, like 7 years, I think, 8.
So you're 7 years in. How do you feel about, are you in a place where you're like, I know what my voice is, or are you still finding that?
You know, I think the older you get, the zero shits you give. And when you give zero shits, you just speak your mind. And really, like right now, like I think it's. I was actually going through some old comedy videos today. It's so funny, you know, that because I was looking at one of my first tapes, and I was like,
"Ooh, I love that."
I was like,
Don't you cringe? I couldn't get through my first video. I was like, I can't watch this. I literally can't.
I like watched it. I was like, "Ooh, okay, shame." Like, oh, like you tried, you know. I mean, you were funny, but like I understand why people wouldn't book you. You know what I mean? Like, but yeah. So I was going through some of the first hits, and I think like right now, like the older you're getting, the more sure you are of yourself, right? I feel like each year you get older, you get more sure of yourself. So I think for me, it's like, you know, some people go on stage, they get nervous, and now I'm like, I don't really get nervous like I used to. You know, like I'm just like, okay, like I get a little jitters, but I'm not like, oh, I can't do this. You know, I'm like, okay, I don't remember my set. Fuck it. Like we can just rock with what I have. And you know, I've done your shows. I love doing improv. Like I love talking to the audience.
Crowd work. Yeah, you love crowd work.
I love crowd work. So like I feed off that, and I think right now, like I know who I am. So I would say I'm like, you know, I sort of know my voice. I'm like 90% there.
Okay, awesome. I mean, during the pandemic, have you been doing your job full time, or have you not been working? You've been working full time from home.
Yeah,
that's incredible. So, I mean, have you been like working on comedy sets? Have you been doing comedy related stuff too, or what?
Yeah, so you know, I do like recently we started this with the Chicago community. We started like I think end of January doing like a weekly Zoom show.
Okay.
Which Zoom is always weird when you do Zoom shows. I know you did a few. I don't know if you're still doing Zoom shows, but it's always weird. Yeah. So and I always feel weird asking people to do it because I know
I'd rather do this than the Zoom shows. I'd rather have this conversation.
Okay. Yeah. Well, our show is sort of like this, but it's like a group of people. You know, that come in. And it's small. So we've been doing like Zoom shows, but I've been writing like I made a goal to myself to write a pilot for a loosely based biopic on my journey to America. Okay. So I wrote the first draft of my script. I'm working on it. Hopefully, I don't know, like if somebody would like that story about my journey to America and shoot one season, I would appreciate that. Let's put that out in the universe.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, so that's what I've been working on. And then obviously the Zoom show, which you like. And then, you know, I think.
Listen, don't get me wrong. I mean, during the pandemic, I've done a ton of them, right? I did a ton of them, but I'll do them. I mean, I don't have a problem, but
it's a different style for sure. Like, I feel like, you know, it's like having a family group chat on WhatsApp. That's what a Zoom show is like, you know?
Yeah, my family does not speak to me over the phone or via Zoom. So there's that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What did they just appear at your house? You wake up one morning, your mother's making chai tea and she has some.
No, my mom's in Pakistan. There's no way she's making me chai.
Okay.
Yeah, she's in Pakistan right now, so there's no way she's making me chai. No, we're just we're not. I think you and I were talking about before the live stream started about how close you are to your family and stuff like that. Like our family is not like I call my family the people I grew up with. Like we don't have a relationship really. We don't have any relationship with each other. Like we're all just off doing our own thing. We don't.
Oh.
You know what it is? I think it's an interesting thing about families.
Yeah.
Just because you are family doesn't mean that you're also actually friends, right? That you actually like each other as people.
Yeah.
In our family, we are just people who grew up with each other. We're not necessarily friends. We don't really get along.
And are you okay? I'm like therapist. I'm being your therapist right now. How does that make you feel? Are you okay with that?
I get to do comedy, and that's all I give a shit about. And then I talk shit about them on stage. So that's what I do. So it's great.
I mean, I'm the oldest of 4, and so I get my jokes from my younger siblings. Like I'm like, yeah, talk to me. Okay. What did you? Can you say that? Okay. Yeah. Okay. But they're much younger. They're like, I'm like a decade or more older than them. So they're like, it's like my youngest brother is still at college. You know. So
wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's what I mean. Does your family ever? Do you feel like your lifestyle is better in New York than versus living in South Africa?
I miss my family and I miss my culture. Like I miss, like, you know, the thing in South Africa is like even friends become family very easy in South Africa. And you know, in South Africa, our culture is just so warm and inviting. Like Mona, if I met you in South Africa at a supermarket and I heard your accent, I would come up to you and be like, where are you from? And you said America. And I'm like, have you been to South Africa before? And you say, no, this is my first time. I'm like, you want to come home and have dinner? And it's like so normal. Like I can bring a stranger home to my house and have dinner with them. And like everyone would treat you as part of their family. Like they'd be like,
that's so sweet.
You know, and that's just the culture in general. So I miss South African culture. And then I also just miss my family because like if I wasn't doing anything on a Saturday, I like this. I like to go to people's houses and watch their TV and sleep on their couch. I know it's weird. I just love that. So I would go to friends' house. I'll be like, "Are you home?" Or like, you know, I'd have keys to some, you know, spare key, and I'm like, "Are you home? I'm coming over." And they'll be like, "Oh, I'm not home. I'll be home, and I'm coming over, and I'll cook a meal. You'll come home. Like you never asked me to do it, and maybe I haven't seen you in a month, but I cooked a meal, and I'm sitting on your couch." Like it's a normal thing, and I miss doing that. I miss going to people's houses.
That is incredible, Karmen. I don't think that I've ever even experienced that in Pakistan. In Pakistan, the common thing is it's like 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. and you hear a knock on the door, and it's like, oh, so and so auntie has arrived, and so uncle has arrived.
Oh,
my grandmother was passing by with my uncle, so she decided to drop by.
Yeah, that's the unannounced. That's what I miss.
That's the desi culture. That's the desi culture. Yeah. All
but
day,
it's also just like a South African thing. Like I'll be like, oh, I'm driving in the neighborhood, and I'll call you and be like, yo, I'm outside your house, like a freaking stalker.
That's right. That's right.
And you'll be like, oh, well, I'm like, I'm in the middle of something. You're like, no, finish your sex. I'm just sitting and watching TV.
Just take a shower when you come down. Yeah. Finish that. Get done with that orgasm, and then holla at me when you're done. Yeah. How interesting. Yeah, it's very, I think, I mean, look, big cities like New York and Los Angeles, they definitely don't have that. It's very cold. Nobody's gonna like meet you. I mean, I think it would be different. Had I met you when I was living in New York and I met you, I'd be like, oh my God, Karmen, come over. I'll make you some Pakistani food, right? It would be
and I would be at your house every day then, Mona.
Exactly. And I would love that. I would not have a problem with that at all. I'd be like, oh my God, Karmen's crashing on my couch again. That's cool. All right, that's fine.
Yeah.
No, I think, and that's also because I grew up in Pakistan. So I have like that kind of cultural thing in me. But listen, in LA, it's not really like that. In New York, it isn't like that. That's why it's very lonely. It gets very, very lonely very quickly because it doesn't have that thing, right? Because it's also such a melting pot of different cultures, different people you don't really know, right? In Durban,
and it's a whole process to meet up. Right. You have to text the person. I have to text you to say, "Can I call you at 6:30?" Then I have to send you a calendar invite for the call at 6:30. Then I call you. Then you miss my call. Then you send me a text and say, "I missed your call. Can you call me back?" And then there's this whole like missing each other, missed connections. It's a misconnections ad on Craigslist, but it's happening.
Who's asking you for calendar invites, Karmen? Get rid of these people.
But that's what I feel. I mean, they don't ask for calendar, but they're like, I'm free on the 21st of May at 5 p.m.
You're like,
and so now I caught myself. I start doing that when people are like, can I call you at 5 p.m.? I'm like, just pick up. I got it. Just pick up the phone and call me, bitch. Like, I don't need you to ask me if you can call me at 5 p.m.
Right. But that's become a very normal cultural thing, right? It's weird. People freak out if you pick up the phone and call someone. They're like, "What's the emergency? Are you dying? No? Hang up and fucking text me. I don't need to talk to you."
Right?
I don't like that at all.
I called an American friend for the first time. We used to just text. And then we'd hang out, and I was thinking about them, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to call them. And I called them, and they were like, I haven't had a call since the 2000s. And I was like, what? Like,
Stop.
That's, like, no one calls you?
That's so sad. That's so sad. Yeah, I'm shameless, especially when you're engaged. Is your fiance an engineer also? And is he a white guy? What is he?
No, he's I would never date a white guy. No offense to the white people out there. I just don't want my ass to be colonized, basically. I would never do that. No, my fiance is actually first generation. His parents are immigrants from Trinidad and Tobago, and he's black.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and your family sounds like they're very accepting, very embracing people. So I'm sure that wasn't a thing for them.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was a thing with other, when you at a shopping mall in a very Indian community, and I'm walking with him, and I know the looks. Like he's like whatever. They just look at me. Yeah. I'm like, no, they're looking at you because you're walking with an Indian girl. What they think. But it wasn't bad. Like we had one or two looks, but it wasn't like someone pointing and staring and like, oh, look at him. It wasn't that bad.
Right. Do you know about the Blindian Project on Instagram? Do you follow them?
Yeah, I do.
They're great. I love them. They brought me on and they interviewed me on their Instagram live. I had a great conversation. But, I was talking about the anti-Black sentiment in the South Asian community, which absolutely needs to be called out. Listen, white people are not the only people, right? And not every white person's racist. There's groups of racists in every fucking race, okay?
Yeah, everyone is a racist in some way, shape,
That's correct. Form, yeah. That's correct. There's plenty of racism among South Asians. Plenty of racism. Right?
But unfortunately, I feel like in the hierarchy, we were talking about the levels and in the hierarchy of things.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, because of colonization, Black people are always the last choice.
That's correct. I would agree with that.
And that's the narrative that we need to push to change.
Yes.
Black people, then after that you get dark-skinned people.
Yes.
After that you get people with curly hair. Then it becomes a hair texture thing. It's like a weird.
Yes.
Thing.
Yes. And I think, look, I was telling you that, I was a very dark-skinned child and I
don't think so.
And you don't think that? Because living in America, I need to go out in the sun a lot this summer because I want to get tanner than what I am. But I was a very dark child growing up. I was tanning all the time. It's hot.
I don't believe you because I've met desi American people and they'll be like, I'm so dark skinned. Oh my God. I'm like the black sheep. And then I'm like, show me a picture when you were I'm like,
I have to find you a picture of me tan as hell. But
tanning doesn't count because it lasts for a few weeks. I'm saying your normal color. Just
my normal color. Yeah, my normal color is. I think you're a lot fairer than I am. Actually, you're a lot. Yeah, you're a lot fairer than I am.
Because I'm always the darker person. I feel like I'm the darker person.
No, I think you're a lot fairer than I am. But I was always this dark child. And my God, I fucking got bullied, man. I got bullied by my own family. I got bullied by relatives. Yeah, it was a thing. My father was very dark skinned, so I got his coloring, and it was a big deal. But honestly, I just feel like as a human race, if we want to really just fucking move forward beyond the skin color, I think we should just come up with countries at this point where you just take the kind and the cool and the progressive people and put them in country, and then take the backward assholes who constantly want to divide people by color and race and just throw those assholes in fuck-offistan. That's
just block off the middle of America and The West Coast becomes a country, and the
I am saying that. Like, who cares about the Dakotas? Like, who goes to the Dakotas?
nobody cares about you, Indiana. Like, no one's like, oh, I want to go for a vacation to Indiana.
Nobody cares about you, Mississippi. Nobody cares. And I would say there's like there's definitely parts of Middle East that I feel about, and South Asia. Like even in Pakistan, we have our own. We're gonna wrap up in like 2 minutes, but in Pakistan, we have our own. We have Pakistani Black people. We call them
I know
Makranis,
about that.
Right? We have Makranis. It's a Black community that has their own thing.
Yeah, I had a Pakistani friend say that I look like somebody that was, I don't know, they know somebody that like mixed Indian and Black, and they look like me, and I was like, oh okay.
See, that's when I met you, I thought you were a mix too. I thought you were mixed with, but you already have some mixed blood.
Yeah, I am mixed. I just identify with a culture. I didn't,
Right.
It's like someone being Black and white, and they identify as Black, or somebody.
That's right.
I'm just Indian and other, and I identify.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Karmen, this has been such a really awesome, fun conversation. Thank you very much for being so open and so cool.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate being here.
Yeah, this was really great. So you got your IG on here. Where can people follow you and watch your upcoming shows? Where can they go?
If they, it's KarmenNaidoo.com. So I got all my stuff there.
Awesome. By the way, before we go, I want to tell you a quick story. When I lived in New York, I got invited to a party, and I met this man named Leon Naidoo. And we started talking, and he looked like President Obama. And I was like legit drooling over him when I met him. And I was like, who is this handsome ass man, right?
Yeah.
And then we ended up becoming friends. And then what I found out is that he was the ambassador to South Africa. That's what he was, right? And
oh, wow.
We became friends. And we are friends to this day, actually. He moved away. He no longer lives in New York. He moved away. And he was the only other Naidoo that I had met until I met you.
Oh, and his dad is probably Indian, because that's what there's a lot of us.
Indian, yeah.
There's a lot of us floating around in South Africa, and here I have some friends like me where our fathers are Indian, So
yeah. Nice. So that's the only one I do. Karmen, this was such a fun conversation, and maybe next time when you come on, we'll talk a whole history episode. How about that? You
want to do a history?
I want to do a whole history episode, a South Africa versus American history episode.
Okay, we'll do that.
Or more like a world history episode. That would be amazing.
Yeah, we could do a world history. Tell me the topic.
I would love that. Yeah, I would love that. We'll come up with it. But Karmen, this was so much fun. Thank you so very much, my friend.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I'll talk to you soon. All right.
Thanks.
Take care. Bye. Thanks. That was my lovely friend, Karmen Naidoo. That was such a great conversation. I learned so much about Karmen. I learned so much about South African culture. I just learned a lot. James really enjoyed it. He said, thanks, Mona and Karmen. Fun chat. Have a great weekend. Thank you very much, James. You too. You guys, if you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do. I am literally at the verge of getting monetized. I've been busting my butt throughout the pandemic. And I am so close to just getting monetized on YouTube. So if you guys can go to youtube.com/Mona Sheikh and the word comedian, that would be amazing. I'm of the same name on TikTok and also on Facebook. And of course on Instagram and Twitter as Mona's Comedy. You guys have a great weekend. Stay safe out there. I will see you on Monday. Good night.